Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Ayn and today we are going to be celebrating Work in Publishing Week together. I am actually quite surprised that I haven't shot this video before, but I want to share with you my publishing career journey. This is probably the thing that I have spent the most amount of time discussing in panels and events because of course, anyone who's trying to get into publishing is very curious to hear how other people have done the same thing. And so it has been a while now since I first started in the industry. I think this video is actually going to out my age, but oh well. But I'm really excited because it's one of those things that is going to allow me to hopefully give you a little bit of an insight on how your own career journey could be, but also just reflect on what these past years have been. I think we are, or at least I am, quite used to just moving from goalpost to goalpost. And sometimes when I reach one of my goals and when I reach one of the things that I have been working so hard towards or I've been wanting to make happen for the longest time, I forget to stop and celebrate. So I hope this can be a moment for me as well to celebrate my career and publishing journey and for you to discover a little bit more about my journey and see if there is anything that you can, implement in your own journey or that can help you moving forward. I will be probably putting timestamps on this video so that you can actually move along or skip through any parts that are not so interesting for you, and hopefully that can maximize your time. I am very aware that we are all very poor on time and I don't want to bore anyone, but I will try to cover everything that kind of I took as a step to get to where I am today. And for those of you who don't know me, at the moment I am working full-time as a partnerships and events manager at Penguin Random House UK, based in London. And I also obviously run my YouTube channel, but that is completely on the side of my job and unrelated to my actual day job. So I suppose I should start from the beginning. I have always loved books. Yes, I am that cliche kind of person. To me, books, since I was a little girl, were a way to escape reality, a reality that wasn't that great for me. And it was a way to kind of live different experiences, travel, and see things that otherwise I would have never been able to see and imagine. And that is the kind of truth of it. And for as cheesy as it sounds, I do believe that the majority of people that work in publishing have a love for books that goes beyond the simple pleasure of reading, or that goes beyond the kind of superficial appeal that books can have at times. And I really do think that every single one of the people that work in publishing has a story and a moment and a book probably that has changed their lives. And so naturally, what I really would have loved to do was to work with books. However, I was born and raised in Italy, and the Italian landscape for publishing wasn't that great when I was about to enter the world of work. And so although I had this dream and this big kind of passion in the back of my head, I was also not really realistically thinking that I was going to be able to make it a reality. When I was 20 years old, I was studying Italian literature in a university in Italy, very close to my hometown. And I decided that for the sake of my future employment, I should probably learn to speak English. To some people's surprises, I really did not speak very good English. Even though we study it since we're kids in Italy, like they do probably in other parts of Europe, the level of teaching is not that great, and I certainly didn't think I was that good at languages. So I decided, okay, I've got to spend a bit of time, if I can, in a foreign university, possibly in the UK, because I couldn't really afford to go to America, although the dream still lives that one day I'll be able to actually live in New York. A girl can dream. So it was gonna be the UK. At the time, obviously, was part of the European Union, and I applied for the ERASMUS program, which I believe now is slightly changed, so I'm not sure if it's still possible to do that, to come to the UK, but at the time it was a great opportunity and it wasn't without its hurdles. I wasn't really welcomed by other teachers to apply to the Erasmus exchange because I wasn't actually a languages student. I was studying Italian literature as opposed to studying, you know, English or Spanish or multiple languages, and those were the kind of students that were like kind of pushed to do these kind of exchanges. But I still tried my best, and after several people telling me that I probably wasn't even going to be able to order a sandwich in the UK, I found a lovely, funnily enough, British professor that supported my application. And a few months after, I discovered that I was accepted for a 9 months exchange at Royal Holloway University. And it was probably the most like life-changing thing that has happened to me. And I'm gonna just go as far as saying that it's gonna be probably one of the most life-changing things that will ever happen to me, because moving countries is just like a whole different experience. But anyway, maybe if you want to know more about that, just let me know and I'll do a video about it because I don't want to get sidetracked. So I get accepted to this exchange program and I go to Royal Holloway to spend 9 months trying to actually do my final year of university there. So it was actually really hard. I didn't speak practically any English. I had to do a test, so I had like the basic things, but it wasn't very good. So I kind of like did my best that year. I've never been somebody who's particularly hung up on grades, so my biggest thing was to like just come back home having learned the language. That was like my biggest thing. And then 9 months after, I realized that I wasn't quite done with the UK, and I decided to continue working where I had been working throughout my Erasmus to support myself financially. And I just continued to be a waitress in this restaurant and decided to stay. And as I was staying, I realized that actually I had an opportunity there. And I had the opportunity to make my dream of getting into publishing happen, because in Italy, it was going to be like practically impossible to do that at that time. But in the UK, there were master's degrees. There were places where you could grow, you know, your connections, where you could go and do internships. And so I thought, okay, let me just like give it a go. I'll just give it my best shot. But I knew that because I wasn't really aware of like the publishing landscape in the UK, I would have had to work my way up from probably like smaller jobs and like things that didn't really have to do with book, to the extent that you get to work with books in a publishing house. So my first step was to like try to look into my university and Royal Holloway and see what kind of opportunities there were there that linked to books. And luckily, I actually found a sort of like program, which was a volunteer program. And it was like an association that was like trying to save books from being pulped. So I started working, or volunteering rather, with them whilst I was working as a waitress and I was trying to deliver my dissertation. The reason why I am kind of highlighting this and highlighting that I was like doing this volunteer alongside other things is because I think sometimes we forget that like there is like always like a multi-layer approach to like growing your CV, to growing your career, and very few people have the privilege to just like take away time to purely dedicate to go, I don't know, into a publishing house to do an internship, or to just like work for free somewhere or shadow somebody. And I think that is normal. I don't necessarily agree with this sort of like unpaid internship or taking advantage of volunteers and things like that. But at the same time, I think it's important to be pragmatic and to actually accept that that is like sadly the state of the workplace at the moment. So that was like very much the same thing back then. So I was volunteering and you know, like it was a charity and all that, but I was also like doing quite a lot of other things on the side. So it was a very stressful and busy time. And at the same time, I just kept kind of like looking an eye out for jobs. And a job came up, which was in a Waterstones, and it was a Waterstones in the town nearby where I was like waitressing, which was actually, the town was Windsor. So I applied for that, and it was a temporary job as a bookseller over Christmas. I kid you not, I never thought I had a chance, because My English was okay at that point. I had been in the UK for like about a year, but it was still not that great, and I had absolutely no idea about British books. My whole education had been around Italian literature. Now it's kind of the opposite, if anyone is interested, to my shame. But I had no idea. And so I thought, oh gosh, like there's going to be so many people. And then I didn't know how I was going to make it work with my waitressing job. This was just a job that was like going to be there for like about a few months, if that. And I couldn't really like drop out my waitressing job for the Waterstones position. But anyway, I go in, I go for the interviews. I remember one of them being actually with somebody on the shop floor telling me to pitch them a book, like talk to them about a book and sell them a book. And I picked The Alchemist, which was the only book that I actually had read in English at that time. And apparently I did a good job at it. And so I got the position, and I was just so delighted and surprised and just grateful that I got the opportunity. And I remember that when I was told that actually I made it through past like 70 people or something like that, I was just like amazed. I was just like, how did I manage to do that? But I did, and it was like the most fun and bizarre experience ever. I just remember sitting in my lunch breaks with a book in my hand thinking, oh my goodness, I've made it. I work in publishing. I work with books. And I've got to be honest, I could have literally stopped there because that was like such a big dream. I never in a million years would have thought that I could do that, but I was selling books. So my time at Waterstones was absolutely lovely. It was quite stressful because I was trying to deliver my dissertation for university, which was back in Italy. And then I was also like working in the Waterstones during the day, volunteering during the morning, volunteering in the afternoon, and then going to work at night as a waitress. So a very intense time, but it was like for a couple of months, and I really wanted to build up that CV. And the next step that happened, and the reason why I really wanted to build up that CV, was because I was going to apply for a master's in publishing. And the masters in publishing were quite expensive. I think they still are, but I thought they would be the best way for me to create connections, to learn about the publishing industry, and have the best possible chance at landing a job in an actual publishing house. And so I did that. I built up my CV with all this experience, and then applied for a master's degree and got accepted at a few, and decided to go with the master's at UCL. The master at UCL was extremely intense. This was like a whole year of lectures and projects and opportunities, and because I didn't have like enough money saved to both pay for the fee and to like, you know, actually live in London, I had to continue working. So I was still working as a waitress. I've moved restaurant at that point, and I was working in London. I really wouldn't recommend that, and I have done a different video on how to make the most out of your MA, which I'm gonna link up here and down below. Go and watch it if you're looking for some advice on that, but I definitely wouldn't recommend doing what I did, which was working and doing an MA at the same time, because it was very, very stressful and just not like the best way for you to like make the most out of your MA. However, I did manage, and the time came throughout that year that I was doing the MA for me to actually do a placement. At the time, the placement was actually compulsory, and it was like part of the MA, so you had to do a placement to get your final degree. And I sadly had something happen, and due to health reasons, I lost my job as a waitress, which was probably the scariest time ever, because I was in the middle of like doing this MA. I had more fees coming up from the university that I had to pay, and I also had to pay for my own rent, and I didn't have enough money without the job. So I had to take some sick leave, but the sick leave for a waitressing, 0-hour job is basically nothing. And so I had to ask for help. And by the time my placement came, the only thing that I could do was actually find something that would allow me to do the placement as a full-time job, and it would actually pay me. So I spoke with my lecturer, which were incredibly understanding, and they found me this placement, who was one of the few at the time that was actually paying. And it was still like, I would only get paid the hours that I worked, but it was a great opportunity. And that's how actually my first ever job in a publishing house started. So not the best circumstances. And I remember feeling really, apart from obviously the pressure of not being well physically, obviously the mental pressure of dealing with all the stress from, can I actually pay for this? What is it going to happen to me if I can't pay for my rent and if I can't pay the fee of the university? It was really stressful, but at the same time, I will never forget the fact that despite all the stress, I managed to pull through with the help of like some really lovely people that I will forever hold in my heart, and I got to work in a publishing house. And one thing that happened as well at the same time was that I had to kind of deal with the fact that I didn't have the same background and the same possibility that everyone else had. And so whilst most of my colleagues were going off to work for really great companies and working with cookbooks or like doing like lots of kids events and like things like that with amazing and fun things, I was actually working for an academic, a very small academic startup. So my first publishing job wasn't glamorous. My first publishing job wasn't the job of a lifetime, and it certainly wasn't what I had been dreaming of in my wildest dreams, but it paid, and I am so proud of have been able to be part of that team. They, to this day, they have been one of the best employers that I've had. I have friendship came out of that job, and I'm just very grateful. So I think sometimes what we forget is that the first job, or even a job that you get, is not gonna be your dream job straight away, but that doesn't matter because it can bring you like other things. For me, it bring me some financial security at the time. I was able to continue pay for my fees and pay for my rent and pay for everything that I needed to pay. And I was also able to like gain experience, meet new colleagues, understand the office environments. And it was like absolutely invaluable. And there were no books because it was an open access digital publisher. So, a little bit gutted about that. But then what happened was that I was offered eventually a full-time job in this place. And I realized that that was really not what I was chasing after. I wanted to work with books, and I would have regretted it, and this is exactly what I said to my then boss. I would have regretted it for the rest of my life if I hadn't tried to get a job in book trade publishing. And it was brave and probably reckless now that I think about it. They were basically about to give me a position that was full-time, that required quite specific training. And I just didn't have it in me to say yes and then stick around until I got a different job. So I was very honest and said, look, this is a situation. I really want to do this. To be quite frank, if it doesn't work, I will have to go back to Italy, but I don't want you to waste your money on training me for something if by any chance in a few months' time I do get a job and I have to leave. It was a hard choice, and it was a hard decision for me to make. And it did come with the very deep knowledge and understanding that that could have been it for me and for my publishing journey, and that I was taking a big risk, but I had to. And so then it begins this period of interviews. So many interviews. Oh my goodness, that time was absolutely wild. I was trying to target things like production and sales because those were the things that I had been working on in this smaller publisher. And I've never really had any intention to be in editorial or marketing even. Perhaps now I'm a little bit more across marketing, but that was not like really the point. And it wasn't really the point in general. I just wanted to get a job in book trade publishing to see what it was like, to get the experience. And I started this series of interviews. Honestly, like I did so many interviews after I actually managed to get any, because at the beginning, oh my goodness, my CV was absolutely disastrous. And if you need any help with your CV, go and check it out, because I've got a video all basically talking about how to craft your CV to a really good standard to save you a lot of time and to land you those interviews. So go and check it out, because I have put sweat, blood and tears in trying to find out how to craft the same CV, and I really don't want you to have to do the same. So yeah, you're welcome. In the end, I managed to actually get a CV that was decent enough and a cover letter that was decent enough, and so the interviews were kind of coming in, you know, thick and fast, but I could not get a job. I wouldn't get an offer, and I just kept interviewing and interviewing, and I did the weirdest interviews. Like, I mean, I remember interviewing for like big publishers, but also very like small independently owned publishers. Like once I was actually, I'm pretty sure it was someone's house. It was weird. And anyhow, I didn't seem to be able to get an offer, and I had to kind of like really try to understand why, and really try to take a step back. And so I remember doing this deep dive into YouTube, actually. And at the time, I mean, we're talking about how many years ago? A long time ago, basically. But I basically looked up at any kind of career tips that I could ever possibly find. And there wasn't a huge amount, which is also part of the reason why I'm doing this YouTube channel. But also, it obviously took a long time. So I was like watching videos about how to interview and how to deliver like tasks and how to do all these things, and really tried to learn. And every single time I was obviously learning something new, but then there was like another curveball that was thrown at me at the interview stage. It was a whole experience. So when I finally got to the end of my sort of actual job that I was performing, I still didn't have a job. I didn't have a job lined up, and my end date was set, and obviously they had to recruit other people. And so I was getting ready. I was packing up. I was like, okay, this is it. I'll just go back to Italy. God knows what I'm gonna do, but I'll just like go back. That's like nothing else for me to do. And it was really hard. And then one day I got an email from a company that you might actually have heard of. And this company is called Penguin Random House. And I got an email that invited me to an interview. And I couldn't quite believe it. I was like, ooh, is it real? I had never heard back from Penguin Random House before. I never thought I would. But yeah, they were asking me to go for an interview. And so I just like doubled down on all the videos and all the articles and all the prep that I could possibly do, and just went in. And I remember this day really well, because it was like just a bit messy, let's say. I had always imagined going into one of these big office spaces to interview, and actually, you know, like walking in with a really nice dress and a really nice bag and whatever, but I didn't have those things. So, you know, it wasn't that kind of thing. This is all the fault of like Sex and the City and like all these kind of things that they put you in your head, that you should look so glamorous and stuff. Anyway, I go in knowing full well that that is like my one shot. I cannot screw this up. I cannot ruin this. I need to do well. And I literally have everything down to like the finer details. So I had prepped my tell me more about your CV and your experience. I had prepped my weaknesses, my strengths. I prepped my situational stories. And I even made sure that I paused if ever there was something that was like a bit tricky. Drink a cup of tea, I think I had like a glass of water. I just made sure that I had that glass of water to ground me. So I was very focused. I was going in knowing that that was it and that had to happen, but also kind of like hoping for nothing in the same way. So anyway, I go in, I get called for a third and final interview. That third and final interview was actually the toughest one, because I couldn't really read them and I didn't really know what was going on, and I had to actually negotiate my salary in that one. And I was like, ooh, what now? So that was like, whoa. And then a few hours after that interview, I got a call from a lovely lady called Georgina from HR, and I will always remember her name because it was such a big moment. And anyway, I was in my room and she called and she said that, and I genuinely screamed. I screamed. Like, I just screamed. I was so happy. I was so excited. They actually offered me £500 more than I had negotiated for. And I was, you know, that was kind of like a sweet thing to do. And yeah, it was very, very exciting. That's how I got my first job at Penguin Random House. Nonetheless, my job was actually international sales and operations across Asia and rest of the world. So very interesting territories. Quite challenging, but interesting, and it was wild. It was a really, really wild sort of first big company job. But anyway, a story for another time. After that, what happened was that I knew and realized when I was like about a year into that job that I wanted to do something that wasn't necessarily that. It wasn't quite sales, it wasn't operations. I wanted to follow another passion. So by that point, I had gained a bit more confidence in my abilities, and I knew that if I had been able to get into publishing, I could do more. I could push myself. I could really reach for those big goals. And I really loved events and live experiences literally forever. And so what I basically did was tried to find a way to move and to kind of like incorporate that events element into my career. I took the exact same approach that I did like when I knew that I wanted to go and try to get into publishing, which is to kind of like build my CV and like build my experience around the topic. So whilst I was working at Penguin Random House, I applied for the Society of Young Publishers to become an events coordinator for their London branch. And again, I didn't really know if I was gonna get it or not, but I did. And I was, again, really delighted. And that was like an amazing experience for me to be able to both grow my network within the publishing industry and learn a little bit more about events management and organization whilst still having a full-time job to rely on. Once I did that, for a few months, I realized that I really just like wanted to double down on that and make sure that events was becoming something that was like my specialty. So I signed up for an evening diploma with the Event Academy. So I'm actually certified events manager. I studied it. I did lots of things and like volunteered and spent like hours doing that, which was like amazing. And at that point I was only a few years into my publishing career, so it was like quite an early thing for me, but it was like amazing to be able to get that confidence from actually having done something that was like a qualification and a professional qualification. And that is just like my decision. It was my decision very much to like rely on something that was more formal and that was like required training, but it is not the only way to do these kind of things. I think personally I take confidence in actually knowing what I'm talking about, knowing what I'm about to be doing. And although I like to learn on the spot and on the job as well, for some things is like it makes it a little bit easier. And it's always about, in my head, can I invest in myself and can I maybe sacrifice something else so that that journey and that step becomes a little bit faster. And that's very much what both the MA in publishing and my evening diploma in events management have done for me. It probably would have taken me maybe like a few years more if I had tried to like transition, or I would have maybe had to take a step back and becoming an events assistant, which I never have been. So that's just like something that has worked for me, but again, it's not something that works for everyone. Once I had done those things, I was practically ready to change jobs and I started applying for jobs. This was in a very sort of tough time, because the beginning when I started applying for jobs that were like a mixture between publishing and events, it was fine, but there wasn't much. And then a point in that summer came where there were like so many jobs, like literally I think I applied for 3 jobs at the same time. They were all like hybrid between like sales and events, and that was like quite peculiar. But I was super excited, and then something quite bad happened and I lost someone at home. And yeah, that's not something that I want to discuss today. Maybe at some point I will, but it was a really rough time because I was trying to not miss out on the opportunity of these jobs actually being advertised, and also making sure that I was taking care of the things that needed to be taken care of at this difficult time. So it was incredibly challenging, and I think like the best thing that helped me in that case was just to be upfront with people. So I was in the middle of interviewings for a few roles, so I had to like say what actually happened. I had to go back to Italy, and for one of the jobs I was actually looked after by and represented by Inspired Selections, which is a publishing recruitment consultancy. You should definitely check them out and sign up with them. They are absolutely amazing, and they did an amazing job with me to like try to help me to not miss out on those opportunities, and also support me throughout the application process for that specific job. And so I dealt with it as best as I could, and I proudly came out of the whole experience with 2 job offers, and then I was able to pick the job that I thought would fit best. And that was my job at Oxford University Press. So I started at Oxford University Press at the end of August that year, that summer, and that was in sales and events capacity, which was an absolute dream. It was also a step up. So I was getting a salary increase and a title increase, a promotion, I guess, on my title. And it was a very special thing to be able to do. I was very proud of myself for having gone through all of that and ultimately have succeeded, and also just very excited that I get to work for a very big, well, the biggest academic publisher in the world, the biggest press in the world. It was an absolutely amazing time. I love Oxford University Press, such a great employer, and honestly I cannot recommend it enough. There was a slight thing in the back of my mind that said, oh, but you just came away from academic publishing because you wanted to work in trade publishing, so with books, and now you're going back into something that is academic publishing and no books. It was digital courses actually. But it was important for me to be able to integrate the event side of things, and I decided that that was like worth it. Throughout all that, another big shout out goes to my SYP family, who was so lovely to me, and they really supported me and helped me, and I honestly have felt like all the love and all the support that summer of the publishing community, and forever grateful for that. So I started my job at OUP. I was a sales and events executive. That was not my job title, but that was kind of the level. And I really enjoyed it. It was such a sort of like full-on role. My manager ended up leaving like about a month or so after I started, and we didn't have somebody for like quite a few months. So I was really just like having to step up. Once they started again recruiting, at that point I had been there for 9 months, and I had really over-delivered and overachieved like a lot of the targets and done like a lot of things for the company. And I had a really lovely sponsor that within the company that suggested that I went for my previous manager's position. And bear in mind that that was like a senior manager role with a team of 2 at the time. So it was quite a step up from being an executive to that, but I went for it. I put my heart and soul into it. It was absolutely terrifying because I was actually interviewing and competing with people that had like 10-15 years experience in sales and stuff like that, but I gave it my whole, and I had like the most lovely colleagues, and in the end I got the job, which was again just mind-blowing. So that was like the big career step for me, and it was such a special moment. I remember feeling really appreciated and also very grateful that I stuck with everything that I did in terms of like, you know, all these changes and like really chasing something that was a bit unique and something that was not necessarily established, I guess, like in publishing back then. Doing sales and events was still like a little bit like of a, you know, what is that? But I didn't give up on it. I really felt like that was the thing that was for me, and really it didn't properly kind of happen in terms of like, you know, that perfect match until the job that I have today. So when I was at OUP, I obviously read the news and all that, and maybe one day I'm going to go into like how I got my job at Penguin and what that process was like, because it's quite interesting. But essentially I saw this, you know, this position. I applied for this position, which was as an events program manager for Penguin Connect, which is where I am right now. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is like back with books, but keeping sales, but increasing the events capacity, working for like a small dynamic team, and being able to shape something super exciting in a business that it's obviously a great brand. And again, went through 4 interviews and got the job. And then, you know, I have been there for now 2 years. So it was a wild ride. One thing that I actually forgot to mention is my time at the SYP. So after I was an events coordinator for the London branch, I was about to apply for a position as head of events within the London branch again. I really had loved my time as events coordinator, and I knew that I wanted to make events like my bread and butter. And I was really ready for it. And then I was actually approached to potentially go for and apply for a role as UK chair of the SYP, and I was kind of like mind blown. And this person has since, you know, I don't even think she knows how much like that actually changed my life in terms of like the confidence that it gave me. But yeah, shout out to you, Alice. Lots of love. She was the previous SYP UK chair. Gosh, this is turning out to be a very emotional video, but she was the first ever chair of SYP UK. So the Society of Young Publishers has got several different branches, and the UK branch was established to kind of like bring together all the branches and like act as a sort of central committee. And she was chairing the very first central committee. And when she mentioned to me that I should probably, you know, like apply and go for that, I just could not believe it. But she, yeah, it was such a special thing, and I got to be chair of the society with the best vice chair that one could ever have, Sophie. Shout out to her as well, because she's amazing. And it was the wildest thing to have to oversee something so big and feeling the biggest imposter syndrome of my life. I literally had people that were like, but why you? Like, whatever, why are you there? And I didn't even know why I was there, but I gave it my absolute whole, and I did my best to really try and look after the people that were in my committee and listen to everyone else that was in the different committees. And I was so very grateful for that experience, for the possibility of being able to leave my mark in the UK publishing industry in that way. It was so special. And it was hard. It was actually the same year that I got my big promotion at OUP, so I was traveling extensively. I had a team. I was actually also in a long distance relationship because my partner then was actually living in Germany, so it was all so crazy busy. But you can probably tell from the big smile on my face, I wouldn't change any bit of it. And that brings us to present day. I am obviously really excited for what's to come in my career, but I'm also incredibly proud of everything that's happened before. And I think if you've made it this far, if I can give you a piece of advice, is to never ever stop trying, because sometimes you just don't know what's around the corner. And I know that at moments in time during my chasing my dreams and trying to make my career happen, I really thought I wouldn't have been able to like get anywhere. But it happened. It ended up happening, and it didn't happen just because of my efforts. It ended up because I opened up to people, because I asked for help, because I was able to form like special connections, and because people saw that I truly deeply care about this industry and about books, and you know, like championing the power that they have to change anyone's life. And books have definitely changed my life. I would have never got to where I am today without books. And so that is just like something that I'm never going to be able to look past and forget. And I'm very, very grateful for all the experiences, all the people, all the mentors, all the amazing people that have supported me, because it is 100% not just my work. And I have done a lot, and I have pushed, and I have worked hard and sacrificed much, but it's also been thanks to the people that have supported me and championed me and pushed me and picked me up when I was really not feeling like it. So I'm just gonna mention a few. But Emma, my beautiful mentor, I know she probably won't be watching this. None of these people will probably be watching this, but lots of love to you. Thank you so much for always supporting me. You rejected me for that job a long time ago, and I haven't been able to let go of you. So there you go. Still, here we are. Thank you to Carl, who has been the kindest, the most wonderful publishing friend that a person could hope for. And thank you to Alice and Sophie for making my time at the SYP so special. To everyone who has ever come to any of the talks that I gave, who has watched any of the videos that I've made, or who back when I had a website was reading the articles on the website. Thank you to every single one of you, because you made my journey so exciting, and I'm very, very, very happy to be able to give something back and share my experience and share what I've learned along the way, because if I can make even one person's journey into the publishing industry easier, then everything, all the time, everything that I'm doing is 100% worth it. So that's it for my career journey. I hope this is not gonna end up being too long. I'm gonna try and cut it down, but also I just wanna make sure that I share something that is so important to me. This has been a wonderful way for me to celebrate Work in Publishing Week. And I hope that you got a little bit of encouragement and reassurance that things sometimes are really hard, but they get better. So keep at it, keep going, and I can't wait to have you as a colleague in the industry soon.